Welcome. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. I am Stephanie Poole. I am the founder and CEO of Birth Prep Academy, where we help pregnant women prepare for their very first hospital birth. I am back at it with another episode, and today I'm really excited about this one. Y'all, I got like 2 pages of notes here. So, um, today we're going to be talking about the 3 ways successful moms use a birth plan to their advantage. And the reason why I'm like really excited about this one is because I think it's not just for you, it's also for me. It helps when I go over the different advantages. It helps to just cement the real reason why I do this, right? And so I am not gonna take up any more of your time. I just want to jump right in, get to the meat of it, and then yeah, we'll be done. So okay, let's just start by saying that most women struggle, right, with their transition into motherhood. As a matter of fact, that's exactly why I started Birth Prep Academy. Now, I have a few things here, and I want to make sure I get this right. There was research done in 2017, and in that research, they found that during pregnancy, 1 out of 2 pregnant moms admit that they're nervous and scared of becoming a mother. 1 out of 2, right? 1 out of every 2 women that were polled were scared and nervous about becoming a mom. Also, in that same exact study, 1 in 4 women said that they were completely daunted by the idea of motherhood. Now, who is that for? Does that resonate with you? It was certainly me, especially my first go round. I was just nervous and scared. And so 1 out of 4, very believable. I didn't know the numbers were that close, but it is believable because I was definitely one of those women, right? Also, more than 1/2 of the women polled during pregnancy admitted to being overwhelmed after giving birth, right? That is, even when I'm reading it now, I'm like, oh my goodness, how, what the heck? Yes, more than half of the women polled during pregnancy admitted to being overwhelmed after giving birth. Now, the very last statistic that I want to leave with you is that actually 57% of the women said that the first few days and weeks after giving birth was more like a blur. They couldn't even really remember. Your days and nights are running together. So 57% said it was a bit of a blur after giving birth. Now, you might be asking, well, why are these statistics important? They're important because that is what we do here at Birth Prep Academy. So, the bad news is it can be a little overwhelming to transition into motherhood. The good news is that you don't have to do it alone. We're going to get into the meat of that today, how to do it successfully, how to use a birth plan to your advantage. So what I did was I kind of extracted 3 of the common things that I hear over and over and over whenever I'm working with first-time moms and the feedback of it all, right? So what we do know, right, out of all of that, just me working with clients, is that women who prepare or have a birth plan are more likely to experience a positive birth experience. Okay. And we also know that their transition into motherhood is more comfortable for them with a birth plan. So, again, as I submit to you these statistics, please allow me to provide a little bit of balance to say, while that may be the case, while it may be a little bit overwhelming to transition into becoming a mommy, the good news is we have tools that we can use to really help us with that transition. So, with that being said, I am going to just jump right into number one. Like what do I use with my clients to help them to be successful? And so this is number one of the 3 ways that you can use a birth plan to your advantage. The very first one is you get to predetermine birth preferences. Now, before we jump too far into number one, let me say this. You can't control every aspect of your birth. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. There's no way for you to know ahead of time how long you're going to labor, right? You can't predetermine, I'm only going to labor for an hour, or, I'm only going to labor for 3 hours. You don't know. We do everything we can do, right? We know that walking is good for you, and there's other things that can help to assist in less difficult labor, but we can't control it. We don't know exactly how your body is going to respond when giving birth. But what we can do, right? We can influence. You can influence your birth by infusing it with preferences that have been predetermined. Let me say that again. You can influence your birth by infusing it with preferences that have been predetermined. So what that means is once you make decisions in the areas that are important to you, right? For you to experience childbirth in a way that is aligned with who you are as a person. Once you make certain important decisions, that allows you to really infuse yourself into the birth process. So while you don't know how long you're going to birth, you can choose the way in which you decide to labor, right? And I'll give you an example. For you, you may want it quiet. You may want the lights down low. You may not want a lot of people in the room, just maybe you and a support person. And so that may be your preference, which is fine. Someone else may choose to have the lights up. It doesn't really bother them to have the lights on. They may choose to have family or close friends also in the room. They may choose to have music playing. So it is totally your choice how you labor, even in the event when you're not choosing, how long you're going to labor. So that's what I mean by infusing yourself into your birth by making predetermined preferences of what it is that you want. Now, you might be asking, well, what is the benefit of that? The benefit is twofold. And I'll start by saying this. You don't suffer from having what we call decision fatigue. Decision fatigue. That is a real thing. We know that in the morning we wake up with a full tank. You can think of it like a gas tank. You wake up with a full tank, and every decision you make when your feet hit the floor will deplete that tank. So when you decide what to wear, when you decide what you're going to eat, when you decide if you're going to work out or not, when you decide all these decisions that come at us throughout the day deplete from our ability to make strong decisions, right? So the later the day goes on and the more decisions that we've made throughout the day, we know that those decisions get weaker and weaker and weaker because we're taking from that tank, and we're left with a certain amount of strong will or mental capacity after a certain while. After a while, you're just like, I'm tired, I'm done, I'm at the end of my day, my tank is low, right? And so you just are not as strong about what it is that you want. You kind of just go with the flow. You may find yourself going with the flow. That is due to what we call decision fatigue. Well, when you have a birth plan in place, there's a lot of different decisions that you have to make, right? And that you would probably or would likely want to communicate with your healthcare provider. And so, in order to be able to do that effectively without making decisions from a place of being tired and fatigued, right? We want to make those important decisions from a well thought out place. And the way to do that is to have these predetermined preferences already decided on and communicated with your support person, who will also be there to help you advocate, right? And so that is a huge advantage versus someone who kind of wings it, doesn't know, and then in the moment you're stuck having to make certain decisions that you just are not in the mindset to make because you're also laboring, right? So it's hard to make those calls when you're in pain or when you're in discomfort, right? And so having that predetermined is going to be a huge advantage for you being able to have a positive birth experience. Now, really quickly, one other thing I want to add into that notion is that another benefit of having your predetermined preferences already planned out in your birth plan is going to allow you to be present. It's going to allow you to focus on what's really important, which is giving birth, right? And so, it's hard. You don't want to be in a situation where you're being distracted because people are coming in and out. The nurses have to ask certain questions. Your doctor is going to be communicating with you, or midwife, nurse practitioner, whoever is going to be helping you, right, to give birth is going to have questions, and they're going to want to know how you're feeling and, your pain management and all of that kind of stuff. If you've already predetermined some of those things ahead of time, you've already communicated with your support person what your preferences are, then it allows you to tune in to where your focus needs to be, to really focus on enjoying this moment. Every birth is special. Every child, every baby being born really deserves that time and focus. And it allows you to be present when these things have already been predetermined with a birth plan. So that's definitely a huge advantage. You being able to infuse yourself into your birth process, as well as not having decision fatigue and being able to make decisions from a place of love and a sound thought out plan ahead of time, as well as being focused and not distracted, right? So definitely a birth plan will allow you to have that advantage. Now hopping into number 2, we're going to move right along. The second way to successfully use your birth plan to your advantage is by planning and preparing for your rest and recovery after the baby. And this is something I want to just really give a good overview of why this is important. This is important because as I work with moms, and even myself, as I gave birth, especially for the first time, there's so much to do after giving birth, but you are just not, your body is not 100%, right? It's trying its hardest to get back to that pre-pregnancy um, uh, status, but it's difficult and it takes time. And so, having as much planning and preparation as you can have ahead of time is going to serve you well, my friend. It is going to serve you well. One of the things that we do inside of our program, I walk my parents through maternity leave, how to really, determine what your maternity leave is going to look like and how long it will be so that you can really fully support yourself through that time. Trust me, it can be difficult if you don't. I know from experience. We also cover things like how to prepare your home and the nursery, as well as pre-planning your dinners and prepping your dinners so that when you are home with baby, you are literally just pulling things out and heating them up. And maybe not even you, right? Maybe it's someone else that's there to really help with that. But we go through the areas that we've already determined will help with that transition. And this is another reason why my clients are so satisfied and have such a good birth experience, because they are not leaping into motherhood with no point of reference. Like we've prepared them well, and they're able to really focus on recovering for themselves as well as their babies. And so, I always say, and you'll hear me say this over and over again, that, I don't just help my moms prepare a basic birth plan. That's not the goal for me. That's base minimum. What I do is help them to be fully supported in every area that we've identified mothers, especially first-time moms, typically struggle with. And that is key. That is key. Knowing those things, because I've been there, I've done that, I've worked with moms, and now really reverse engineering backwards to say, hey girl, this is something you're going to need to have in place before the baby gets here. So planning and preparation will allow for you to have rest and recovery. And I didn't touch on this, but I want to make sure I do before we move forward. Ideally, the optimal situation is for you to have a short labor and a quick birth with no interventions, as less pain management as possible, right? Because you just get it done and that's it. So that's optimal. But we know that realistically speaking, right, it is very likely that other things will happen outside of that. There might be interventions that may be necessary to get the baby through the birth canal or what have you. There might be complications, God forbid, with either you or your baby that will need to take place so that you can go ahead and birth the baby. So there might be something to arise at the time of birth. And those things are, again, what we talked about in part one. There are certain things you cannot calculate, right? You don't know if you're going to have a tear. You don't know if the heart rate will drop or something like that. And so, given that, right? Given that area of what you don't know how your body will need to rest and recover. You want to allow for enough time to recover regardless of the type of birth you have. If you have an optimal situation with very little recovery needed physically, great. Then that pushes us ahead of the curve. But if you need that extra time, which is often the case, if you need that extra space, that extra grace to really start getting back into the groove of who you are, who you know yourself to be, you are going to be so grateful that you have planned and prepared certain areas of your home, the nursery, your food, and your postpartum. You're going to be so grateful that those things are in place, which kind of gives you that grace to really recover at the pace at which is satisfactory for you given your personal situation. So keep that in mind as well. Now, moving on to number 3, this is the last one, y'all, so we're wrapping it up. The third thing that will help you to use your birth plan to your advantage is allowing for the birth plan to support you all the way through childbirth to immediate postpartum. And this is something that I identified as a problem, right? Because most birth plans really just communicate whatever preferences you want in the moment of giving birth, which is okay, but becoming a mom is so much greater than that. It's so much more involved than that, right? And so with that being said, the birth plan really allows for you to prepare a birth, well, we call it a birth blueprint inside of my program, because it's more comprehensive. And so the birth blueprint really helps set you up for success, because you're not just preparing for the actual act or process of giving birth. You're also prepared all the way through immediate postpartum, which is likely or most commonly up to 6 weeks. Okay? So with that being said, well, what does that mean that you prepare for postpartum? Well, it means that you need to identify the areas where you will likely need help or that may be challenging for you after giving birth, which is something that I've done inside of the program. Again, if you want to know more specifics and things like that, feel free to DM me. But for the purpose of this lesson, you really have to consider that after giving birth, you will be sleep deprived, right? Your days and nights are going to be turned around because the baby's days and nights are turned around. Taking care of a newborn is a 24/7 thing. And what kind of makes everything shift is the fact that while the baby requires 24/7, right? You are still recovering. So now you have these two things working in tandem, and sometimes it's really hard during that time. Okay? And not to mention if, like we said before, there is something going on and, your recovery, well, hopefully, we pray that it's going as ideal as possible. But if that's not the case, taking care of a baby, or taking care of your household and other things during that maternity leave can be quite challenging. And so I like to prepare my moms. I know that they see the most success when they don't just plan for the process of having the baby, but what happens after that, in this, at least bare minimum, the 6 weeks after you give birth. What does that look like? While you're healing, while you're trying to breastfeed and implement that, if that is something that you're able to do, while you're sleep deprived, while you may, or hopefully not, but you may be dealing with, any kind of complication that may arise with either you or your baby. And so it's important to identify where you would likely need support and also to identify who you could count on or reach out to help you provide that support, to get that support. And so, just as a recap, I just want to go over the 3 things that we discussed today that could help you to use your birth plan as for your advantage. Right? Successful moms do this. I know for a fact they do. And so 3 things that they do that helps them to really prepare a good birth plan is they help to, the birth plan helps to predetermine their birth preferences. We know that doing this ahead of time helps you not to be distracted, helps you to be focused, and it helps you to make decisions from a place of love and from your strong inner self, right? As opposed to decision fatigue, which we know is a real thing. Number 2, whenever you have planning and preparation, it allows you to have a full and complete rest and recovery, okay, for both you and the baby. And we do this by not just packing a hospital bag. We do it by really preparing our home, preparing and planning our maternity leave. What will that look like financially? How are we going to have the nursery set up, the home set up? Do we have everything we need while, I'm home resting and recovering? Dinners planned and cooked and things like that. So we really encourage you to use the birth plan to help you plan those things so that you can be successful and in having a positive birth experience and a successful transition into motherhood. And last but not least, number 3, allowing the birth plan to work to your advantage is going to be key when you talk about your support in postpartum. So that's 6 weeks after you give birth, not just having a birth plan that outlines your preferences while you're in active labor or while you're giving birth, but we need to go beyond that and really plan for our postpartum. So with that being said, if you are a first-time mom, you're pregnant and you're preparing for your very first hospital birth, you do not have to do it alone. I would love to help you. One way you can go ahead and get started is to click the link, and it will take you to an option to download my free guide, Pack Your Hospital Bag in 60 minutes or less. I'm whispering that to you. And it will also, there's also a link available for you to sign up for my wait list for our program that will be dropping as of September 1st, Bump to Bundle Blueprint. I cannot talk about it enough. It has been a long time in the making. It has been refined, and just so much has gone into making sure that it delivers results. And I am really excited to be able to launch it on September 1st. So with that being said, definitely click the link, download the PDF guide. It's free, y'all. It's free. As well as hop on the wait list. If you are watching the replay, please still click the link, because you should be able to just go through and find out more about the program if you're watching this after September 1st. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I am always just so happy to hop on and really have an opportunity to talk with you guys. Until next time, happy birthing.